The breakfast rush at my diner lasts exactly 94 minutes. I know because Petra timed it once with the stopwatch on her phone, sitting on the end stool with a spiral notebook cataloging everything. The time the coffee urn ran dry, the minute the last table turned over, the precise moment I exhaled. She was 11 then. She wrote it all down in her careful, looping handwriting and left the notebook beside the register with a sticky note that said, "Data, Dad, you're a machine." I put the notebook in the drawer under the counter and have kept it there ever since. She's 13 now, and she still sits on that end stool. Different books, same posture. It was a Tuesday in late October when the woman in the gray suit walked in. The rush was already thinning. Two booths still occupied, the counter half empty. She didn't look at the menu. She didn't look at anything except her phone, which was pressed flat against her ear, and her voice had that particular clipped rhythm that meant the call was bad, and she was pretending it wasn't. She took the last open stool, second from the end, one seat over from Petra, and held up two fingers without breaking the call. I poured her coffee. She didn't acknowledge it. That was fine. I'd been pouring coffee for 22 years before I ever owned a diner, and in every one of those years, someone in a waiting room or a hallway was too afraid to look up. You learn not to take it personally. You learn to watch instead. What I watched was her color. She was somewhere in her mid-40s, polished in the way that takes real effort, the kind of woman whose briefcase probably cost more than my walk-in refrigerator. But her color was wrong. There was a grayish cast under her jaw that didn't belong there, and every few minutes she pressed two fingers to her temple like she was trying to hold something in place. Her coffee sat untouched. She ordered nothing. I went back to the grill. 3 tickets up, 2 more coming. I filled them, but I kept watching. It happened fast. She was mid-sentence, something sharp about a quarterly projection, and then she wasn't. She tilted. Just slightly, just enough. Her elbow went off the counter edge, and her shoulder dropped, and the phone slipped from her fingers and clattered against the stool. I was around the counter before it hit the floor. 31 years of muscle memory do not ask your permission. My hand was at the back of her neck before she had time to go fully sideways, steadying her, and my other hand came up to her wrist. Pulse check. Automatic. The way breathing is automatic. I'd done it in trauma bays and parking lots, and once on a transatlantic flight when the woman in 14C went pale at 35,000 feet. The body remembers what the mind has tried to set down. Her pulse was there. Fast, slightly irregular. Not immediately dangerous. But not right. "Hey," I said, quiet enough that the 2 occupied booths wouldn't turn. "I've got you. Don't move for a second." Her eyes came back into focus. She looked at me, really looked at me, maybe for the first time, and what she saw was a 54-year-old man in a stained white apron with a dish towel over his shoulder and the kind of calm that probably seemed misplaced in a diner. "I'm fine," she said. "You're not," I said, just as quiet. "When did you eat last?" She blinked. "Tried to reconstruct it. Couldn't quite get there." "Okay," I said. "Sit straight for me. Feet flat on the floor." She did it. I watched her color for another 10 seconds. The gray was pulling back slightly, which meant vasovagal, not cardiac, most likely. Still, most likely wasn't good enough. "Do you have a history of heart arrhythmia?" She stared at me. "I'm sorry, what?" "Your pulse is fast and a little uneven. It could be dehydration and low blood sugar. You probably fainted because you haven't eaten. But it could also be something worth checking. Is there anyone I can call?" Petra had put her book down. She was watching with that careful, quiet attention she'd inherited. I wasn't sure from me or from her mother, and I'd long since stopped trying to separate the two. The woman straightened, smoothed her jacket. The color was coming back now, and with it came the mask, the practiced, polished composure of someone who had been managing other people's perceptions of her for a long time. "I appreciate it," she said. "I haven't slept much. I'll get something to eat." "Do that," I said, "and go get checked out tonight. Not tomorrow. Tonight." She looked at me with the faint, patient expression you give a well-meaning stranger. She'd heard me. She wasn't going to do it. I went back behind the counter. I pulled one of my cards from the little plastic holder by the register. Plain white. Nothing fancy. Just my name and the diner's number. And on the back, in the margin, I wrote 7 words with the pen I keep in my apron pocket. "You didn't look fine. Go tonight." I set it on the counter beside her coffee cup when I refilled it. She ate. Scrambled eggs and toast, and I was glad to see her eat, glad to watch some of the gray leave her face and something steadier come in behind it. She'd put the phone away, which was the first real change I'd noticed. Somewhere in the middle of the eggs, she picked up the card. She turned it over, read the back, and her mouth curved in the faint way that meant sweet, unnecessary. She set it down without looking at the front. When she left 20 minutes later, She tucked it into the outer pocket of her briefcase, in the way you tuck away something you're politely keeping, so as not to leave it on the counter. I watched her go. Petra looked at me over her book. She didn't read it, she said. I know. You still wrote it. I write them whether they read them or not, I said. That's not the point. She looked at me for another moment with those serious gray eyes, her mother's eyes, exactly, and then went back to her book. I went back to the grill. The call came at 11:14 that night, and it was not the call I expected. It was not an emergency. It was a question. The voice on the other end was male, careful, and just slightly unsteady. Is this James Calloway? It is. A pause. This is Dr. Remy Osi at Meridian General. I trained under you. 6 years ago, your last rotation. I don't know if you remember me, but that's not why I'm calling. Another pause. I have a patient in my ER who came in 40 minutes ago with a syncopal episode and a paroxysmal arrhythmia on her first EKG. She's stable. She's going to be fine. But when we looked through her things for an emergency contact, we found your card in her briefcase pocket. He stopped. Dr. Calloway, we didn't know you were. I had no idea you were in the city. I leaned against the kitchen wall. The diner was dark and locked. Petra was upstairs asleep. The only light was the one above the stove, the one I always leave on, a habit from the years when I got home at 3 in the morning and didn't want to walk into a dark kitchen. Is she going to be all right? I asked. Yes, sir. We caught it early enough. She'll need a monitor, probably an ablation consultation, some real rest. She's going to be fine. He paused again. I could hear him choosing the next words carefully. She told us she felt faint this afternoon, and a cook at a diner talked her into coming in. She said he seemed like he knew what he was talking about. We weren't going to tell her about the card, but she asked to see it. She read the front. I didn't say anything. I told her what I know about you, Remy said quietly. I hope that was all right. That was all right. She asked me to ask, if it's not too forward, whether she could come and speak with you. Not medically, just, she'd like to come by. I looked at the dark window over the sink. The streetlight outside made a small gold circle on the linoleum. Tell her the diner opens at 6, I said. She can have the corner booth. She came at 6:47. I saw her through the pass-through before she pushed open the door, the same gray suit, or a different one that was the same, moving more carefully than she had yesterday, and the composure was still there, but something underneath it was different. Quieter. She looked at the diner the way you look at a place you thought you knew, and are only now actually seeing. Petra was at the counter. She had the spiral notebook open, not the old one, a new one, and she looked up when the door opened. Corner booth, I said through the pass-through. Petra pointed. The woman nodded and went. I finished the order on the grill, handed it to the only other table, and came out with a coffee pot and 2 cups. I sat across from her. This was not something I did with customers, and she registered it. You didn't say anything about being a doctor, she said. You didn't ask. She looked at the coffee. Remy Osi told me you ran a trauma department for 18 years, that you trained surgeons. She looked up. He said losing your wife, that you lost your wife in your own R. I did, I'm sorry. Thank you. She wrapped both hands around the coffee cup. Outside, the city was beginning to move. Delivery trucks, a dog walker, the first thin light of the morning. She was quiet for a moment, and I let her be. I've been running my company for 11 years, she said finally. I have 400 people on payroll. I haven't taken a sick day in 3 years. I didn't go to the hospital yesterday because I decided I was too busy to be sick. She looked at me steadily. You wrote 7 words on the back of a card, and I almost didn't read them. And you didn't push. You just left it there. Pushing doesn't work, I said. People hear what they're ready to hear. Sometimes you just put it in their pocket. She was quiet again. Then why do you run a diner? I looked at Petra, who was pretending to write in her notebook and absolutely listening to everything. Because it's here when it opens and here when it closes, I said. Because Petra walks downstairs for breakfast every morning, and I'm the one at the grill. Because nobody dies in a diner from a decision I made at 2 in the morning with my hands in a chest cavity. And because, I paused, because some days I still catch something. Not the way I used to. But sometimes someone sits down and I can see what they can't, and I can put something in their pocket and hope they keep it. I looked at her. You kept it. She blinked. Just once, quickly. My name is Nora Ashby, she said. I should have introduced myself yesterday. James Calloway, I said. You already knew that. Something shifted in her face. Not the mask coming down exactly, but a kind of interior reorganization. The way a room looks different when you move the light source. She almost smiled. Remy said you were the best he ever trained under, she said. He said the thing you taught them was to watch the patient, not the chart. That the body always tells you the truth before the numbers do. That's right. I think you still do that, she said. I think you were doing it the whole time I was at the counter, and I didn't notice. You were busy, I said. That call sounded bad, she laughed. It was short and surprised and real, and it made her look younger by 10 years. It was bad, she said. It's still bad. The bad call is going to be there when I get back. She looked at her hands. The difference is now I'll be there too. Petra materialized at the edge of the booth. She set a plate of toast and a small ramekin of strawberry jam on the table between us, said, "You probably should eat something," with complete seriousness, and withdrew. Nora looked at the plate, looked after Petra, looked at me. "She's yours," she said. "She is. She's going to be something." "She already is," I said. We sat with our coffee while the morning got fuller around us. At some point, she reached for the toast, and I refilled her cup, and the diner, filled with the ordinary sounds of an ordinary Tuesday. Nobody in either of the other booths would have guessed that the woman in the gray suit had been in an ER 11 hours ago, or that the man across from her had once stood at operating tables while residents watched his hands. She left at 7:50 with the corner of a napkin folded in her jacket pocket, her number, written in her careful hand, and a line underneath it in her careful hand, in case I don't read the card next time. I put it in the drawer under the counter, next to Petra's spiral notebook. Petra looked at me. "Data, Dad," she said. "Data," I agreed. I went back to the grill.